about now? Test.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome sauce.
Okay, welcome to the February 21 budget work session. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion, we move into open session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anyone reading the closed?
Got it.
Okay.
Pursuant to general provisions, Article 3-305, 3-104, the Board of Education of Queen Anne's County met in a closed session to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, and performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, to consult with staff, consultants, and other individuals about pending or potential litigation, and to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I think we are going to start, we're changing it up a little bit with the new course approval with Mr. Tolley.
Thank you. Good evening, President Bennett, Dr. Salins, members of the board, executive team. For the record, my name is Adam Tolley. I'm the supervisor of career and technical education, and I'm here tonight to ask for approval for two new courses that we would want to pilot next school year at Kent Island High School and at Stevensville Middle School. So the first course is Project Lead the Way. They're both Project Lead the Way courses. First one is cybersecurity, which we would run at Kent Island High School. And the second course is Project Lead the Way Computer Science Essentials, which we would run at Stevensville Middle School. It is a high school course that would get the students in 8th grade their technology education credit for high school. So it's something that we have been looking at for a long time. And the sort of the way it came about, Mr. Barletta, teacher at Stevensville Middle School, wrote a grant for Project Lead the Way. We got the grant, which was a $10,000 grant. And we want to see if this is something that is going to work, which is why we're asking for the pilot. Mr. Barletta, as many of you know, he's a seasoned teacher. He was our Project Lead the Way National Teacher of the Year last year. So we feel very confident. I feel very confident in him to test this out. And if this works, this is something we would like to do at all the middle schools, to run this technology, whether it's this course or another computer science course, but a course that would get the middle school students a high school credit. So they already have the option to get Spanish credit, Algebra 1 credit at the middle school. So this would give them another option to do that. So that's what we're looking for tonight.
And I'm assuming since he wrote it down there, that's why it's going to be piloted at Kent Island High School. But if it's successful, we would then move it to our other middle schools and Queen Anne's County High School.
Correct. That is the plan. Yes, and it fits. It just worked out really well with the schedule at Kent Island High School. It works well with Mr. Barletta's schedule. And like I said, we're going to keep our options open, but this is the route that we want to go now to see how this works. And then we would want to. There are other options other than Project Lead the Way, so that might not be the route that we go in the future at the other middle schools. But there are other courses that you can do at the middle school that would get this high school credit. So.
And then it'd be offered at Queen Anne's. Right. And we would do Mattapique, Sudlersville, and
correct.
Centerville.
Yeah, and then those 8th graders would have the chance to get that tech ed credit. So it's just something else that they can get at middle school, and then they're one more credit ahead before they get to high school.
The cybersecurity is a year. How long is the computer science? Is that also a year?
That's a year-long course, and
They'll do one class, or how are you?
Just one class that would run all year long.
Any other questions? And motion.
Make a motion to approve the approval project for cybersecurity.
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, next is the overnight trip approval. Again, we're changing up a little bit for Ken Island High School to Busch Gardens.
Good evening, President Bennett, Dr. Salins, board members, executive team. For the record, my name is Sid Pender, Chief Operating Officer, and next to me I have
Brianna Sherman. I'm the choir director at Ken Island High School.
And Dan Harding, Principal, Ken Island High School.
We're here before you tonight to seek approval for our trip for the Ken Island High School Band and Choir to travel to Busch Gardens, Virginia, to participate in the Music in the Parks. They will perform a variety of rehearsed selections and receive ratings from the judges. Ken Island High School Band and Choir members, they will depart on Friday, April 26th, and they will return the next night, April 27th. The travel will be by a charter bus. There's approximately 77 students, 12 chaperones. It comes out to about one chaperone every 6 students. The cost of the trip is, what was it, 5?
Per student?
Yes.
Yeah, 521.
And then they also have $100 per student they've raised through fundraisers, along with the band boosters will help with any students that are struggling with financial aid. Is there any questions we'd like to add?
There was one other fundraiser that the students were able to do that they earned for their own individual student accounts. The prices and the money that was earned varies, but some students have raised over $200 for their trip as well. So they worked really hard on that one.
Any other questions?
We see chaperones as equal number male, females. I mean, enough, I mean, both.
Yes.
Yes, 1 to 6.
Good, sir?
Anything else? All right.
Motion to approve overnight trip for Ken Island High School, Busch Gardens.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. Not too late, though, right? All right, going back to 3.01, FY25 operating budget. Dr. Kibler.
So, Board, Dr. Kibler and I are gonna tag team this a little bit. I'm gonna start off by just kind of talking to the board about the landscape that we're in right now as it relates to the perfect storm of our budget for the FY25 year. So we know that Blueprint is bringing to us many challenges. One of those is that we have to hit that $60,000 threshold of a starting salary. And we have kind of 3 budget cycles to do that, to get there. So that's right out of the gate very challenging. Another thing that's extremely challenging for us is insurance. $14.6 million of our budget is insurance. That's just over 13%. And we are looking at an increase of 6 to 8%. So you can see how that's going to inflate that number. And then probably the most significant is basically just that cliff that we've been talking about year after year, right? From the time we got our ESSER funds. And then we had the LEADS money come out. So when you look at that cliff happening, that's quite a number of positions, and that will impact us. And you put all of that together and you combine that with declining enrollment and how they calculate the wealth calculation, there's just not money coming to the district as it relates to the state. And so these are really challenging times. We're really at a disadvantage. Our enrollment was up, and I want to make sure that the board understands that our enrollment was up, so one would think that we would get more money from the state because our enrollment's up. Excuse me, but because of COVID, they kept in that 3-year rolling average 2019, which is where we were very high in our enrollment. And we're not back to that 2019 mark. So they dropped the 2019 out this year. And so with the true rolling average, although we're 62 students up, we're actually getting funded less than we did last year, $835,000 less. So we know that the commissioners support us, and we know that at a minimum, they would give us flat funding. We know that publicly in budget meetings that they recognize, last year, they gave us 6.3 million over. We've heard them say, we understand that $5 million mark. But this year, unfortunately, that $5 million mark above maintenance of effort really is almost a gloom and doom budget for us because of all the factors that I just shared. And so we put our heads together and we said, you know, what can we do to kind of show this to everyone so that they better understand? And so tonight we're bringing to you 3 options that we need the board to take a position on, to be honest with you. Option A, and Dr. Kibler is gonna go through every single one. Option A is everything that we need to do to keep everything that we currently have in the budget. So all of our ESSER funds, positions, all of our leads positions, it includes salary enhancement. It also includes your increase in insurance, and it also includes the cost of doing business. So that's to be 100% whole. Matt's gonna provide for you draft budget A, which is 18% above last year's. So we're asking for 18% above.
18% from the county.
From the county.
Yes.
Above what the county provided for us last year. The second budget draft is if we were to move forward with recognizing that cliff. So if we just took, and he's gonna go through every bit of this line item, but just to get it out there, if we took away and recognize that cliff, what would it look like? That's a 14% above. And then the last one presented tonight would be a $5,000 above, which is $5 million. Excuse me, $5 million, which is 7%. So there's a couple things, and Matt's got the slide up for me. A couple things that I wanted to go through first before we kind of move into the different scenarios is that it's important also for the board to understand that Sudlersville Elementary School is now designated as a community school. And that's for several reasons. We check all the boxes there. To be a community school, you have to have a certain threshold of free and reduced. You have to have access to, like our new school-based health center there gets us there. There's several different factors, and we meet all those factors, and so they're a community school. So that increases our revenue, which is great. But that money has to be designated to go directly to Sudlersville Elementary School. So that's $273,000. Another thing that is a challenge for us, as I talked about with Blueprint, and Blueprint has great intentions, and we support Blueprint. We do. We support what it stands for and what it's trying to do. Great things we've done with pre-K. The pre-K expansion money has been amazing. I mean, it's the right thing for our pre-K students to be there all day. We are getting them ready for kindergarten. They're going to have a better foundation. And when the board, you know, when the team comes to you and shares the KRA data, you're gonna be like, wow, it's really making a difference. Dual enrollment, great. It's an awesome opportunity for our students, but the price tag of that comes to the district is enormous. Good opportunity for students. We want them to get college credits. We want them to challenge themselves. But when you have a line item that's $120,000 for dual enrollment, and it comes in the first semester was $160,000, you're going, oh my, like that's a big ask of the different districts. And those are just some examples that are putting our budget over where it needs to be. So lots of dynamics, lots on the horizon. But just really want to get to that point tonight to where the board can look at these 3 different options and give us direction on which budget you would like us to build out that we would then take to the commissioners and, you know, ask for.
Can I, before we get into it, can I ask a question about go back to the healthcare?
Oh, sure.
Just because 14.6 million.
14.6 million.
And so that's 13% of the budget?
Just over
So pretty
13.
much every $1 million we spend on healthcare is another percent of our budget. So do we have employees that don't pay any money for healthcare?
Yes, we do. The single individuals have the they contribute 0%. The
And
board pays 100%.
And you said it's gonna increase by 6 to 8%
Correct.
more?
So that's
Yes.
another, right, yeah, 6 to 8.
The compounding factor of that, and it has consistently been going up 6 to 8%. We've been using a little bit of, when I say fund balance, I mean reserve for our healthcare. So there's a different reserve pot for that. So we've been using a little bit of that money. It is very restricted of how much we can take out and when we can take it out. But we have actually been trying to supplement a little bit because the costs have been so high every year, and it's been pre-COVID. I mean, those insurance costs have been, as I said, at one point they were almost 10%. So they have come down to between 6 and 8. But it's high, and that's why we brought Everside in.
Which is no copay, correct?
Which is no copay. So we essentially have a right good number of employees that pay absolutely zero, including no copays if they use Everside.
And the way we're set up, the minimum is not 90, we pay 90% of everything. Nobody pays more
Is
than
that right?
10%.
I would have to go back
I
to
was
What
gonna
I'm
say,
saying is,
Michael,
benefit guide.
we're
That's a
paying
question for Michael.
majority of all the health care for our employees.
correct.
Correct.
And, you know, you run into a problem, I find sometimes, when you're not invested, you know, and you don't know really what it's worth. And I hope some of them do know what it's worth, because when you're paying that number just for healthcare, I don't think it's sustainable forever. I mean,
Right.
it's not sustainable if you want to keep enhancements and keep class sizes and all this other
Right.
stuff. There's a lot of things that go into this thing that, I mean, if that was in your own personal budget, you'd be bankrupt.
Well, and also, 3 years ago, I think we budgeted 85,000 for every new student, every new teacher that came in who was new, is that correct?
Right, now it's about 100, really, because the
100,000.
benefits are so
And so when
great.
they say we have to get to 60, I think it's a misconception that these positions are not really making 60,000, because the benefits obviously are making up like
Much more than
$40,000.
Total compensation.
You know, and that's tough to hit, to keep all of that in, and then also hit the 60,000 threshold. So, yeah, it's tough.
It's tough, it's tough. So.
Okay, sorry. did we
That's
interrupt
okay, no,
you?
not at all, we think the questions are great. So yeah, let's jump into option A. Dr. Kibble, unless you might even have some additional comments.
I think that was a great
Oh.
intro and,
Thanks, Dr. Kibble.
yeah, great lead up. So draft budget A, so we've got the presentation up here. You all have the draft budget summary, which is also posted on board docs. There are some extra. So for the public, the draft budget summaries that you all have in front of you are also on board docs. This is basically the first page of the budget book, which kind of summarizes all the changes from one year's budget to the next year's budget. So again, like Dr. Salen said, we're providing 3 tonight, so you can give us direction on how you'd like us to move forward. Draft budget A, just some notes that are associated with it. It basically allows us to maintain how we're operating in fiscal year 24 into fiscal year 25. One of the things that means is that includes moving the 30 combined positions that we have between ESSER and LEADS into our local budget. So that's the first thing with that. That is, like Dr. Salen's mentioned before, that would be a $12.4 million ask above what the county funded us last year. It also includes, if you, on the budget summary page, you'll notice there's kind of three sections. The first is the revenue, the unrestricted revenue. The second piece is we call the cost of doing business. And these are just annual adjustments that we need to make within our budget. So that's where you'll see increasing the line for dual enrollment. And these are increases. So the dual enrollment line of $180,000, it doesn't mean we'd only spend $180,000 on enrollment, or dual enrollment, excuse me. It means we would increase that line by $180,000 to get us where we need to be. It's trying to address multiple areas that have been neglected in past years' budgets. One of those would be the athletic line. So adding an additional $60,000 for athletics. and that's what you're seeing there in the cost of doing business section. And then in the proposed additions, these would be the places that are new additions into the operating budget. So that's why you're seeing the grant positions in that section, because we would be pulling them over into the unrestricted operating budget. Again, the big idea with option A is allowing us to essentially operate like we are in fiscal year 24 in fiscal year 25. Questions? So as we go over to draft budget B, this is built off of a $9.7 million ask over the county's amount last year, so an increase. And I've broken this down into what are the differences from draft budget A to get us to draft budget B when you're looking at the presentation. And essentially what we're doing from A to B is kind of the ESSER cliff that we've talked about for years now, leads ending, essentially letting that go and not absorbing that back into the local budget. That's part of it, a majority of it, frankly. So what I've removed from A to B is 17 of the total ESSER positions, 6 of the leads grant positions. We included in there in budget A an increase in the textbook line of an additional $278,000. It's just the price of books and materials. So we've taken that back down to just keep it flat from last year to this year. So it would just stay at $500,000 instead of increasing it. We reduced scanning costs by $100,000. Part of what this is just getting with the times. This building's been around for 100 years. We have documents in this building that are 100 years old. To be scanning those documents, keeping them electronically and shredding. Part of that is a plan to move to a new building, so we're not storing all of that stuff in the future. In A, we put that in as a $200,000 cost. This would be to try to spread that out over multiple years. And then I also reduced the materials of instruction line by $3,500. We had to increase, though, the substitute budget by $250,000. And the reason for that is because in removing the 17 ESSER positions, we would be eliminating the permanent subs that are in every building. So if we're going to take the permanent substitutes out, you're going to have some additional costs in the part-time substitute. So that's kind of that offset. And then this would also include of locally funded positions that we have in fiscal year 24, approximately eliminating 12 locally funded positions for a savings of about $1.2 million. Part of the reason for that is because if you would go back from A to B, you'll notice I'm not adding up to the total ESSER positions. So that eliminating some of our locally funded positions would allow us to absorb a few of the ESSER positions into our budget. And Dr. Salins, I don't know if you want to point those out or want me to.
Sure, well, yeah, you can see it on here. That would be 4 teaching positions that were basically in the ESSERs. Our English language learner teachers that we added that aligns with our strategic plan would have to be pulled in to the budget, as well as a social worker position that's currently being funded by ESSER, and then 2 migrant education positions. So those are positions that we can't just eliminate. We need to pull them into the operating budget to align with our strategic planning and our expectations of the state as it relates to student achievement, so.
Questions here? Okay. So I kind of explained how we got budget A, budget B, and then sort of along the same line for draft budget C. This includes that $5 million increase in county funding from last year, which again, Dr. Salins already sort of gave the lead in on why we went with this one. And what we're doing now is on this page, the draft budget, the C notes, think about, we're not starting from A this time, so it's gonna include everything we've already talked about from B. And the following. So now we've removed the athletics increase of $60,000. And again, the increase of $60,000. I know we're gonna have the public watching this. It's not what's going on in some other districts. This is just the increase we're taking away, not the programs altogether. The commencement increase of $5,000, pulling that back. What it does do, because again, we talked about a doomsday scenario, it's removing the line for textbooks next year altogether, saying we'll take out $500,000 for textbooks. We will not buy any new books next year, which some of the initiatives we've had and we've talked about, we would not necessarily be able to do. It reduced repairs to buildings. We had built in there an increase of $100,000, so this would, I reduced that increase by $35,000. And then the last one is the hardest to swallow. I will say the 12 that I already talked about in B are built into this number. This is eliminating 53 locally funded positions for a savings of approximately $5.3 million. I would say that would be 53 total locally funded that we have right now from FY24 into FY25. What this doesn't talk about is the 23 or 24 we were already mentioning from the grant positions, one that would have already been on top of that 53.
So we're at 75, essentially around 75 positions at that point. And then one that we, aren't putting on the table is that flat funding, which could happen. And that's $5 million, which would be 50 additional positions. So now you're sitting at 75 with an additional 50 positions if we were just flat funded. So 125 positions.
When we say 75 positions, what are we talking about across the board, like staff, like everybody? It's just.
So the reason we worded it as positions is because, frankly, until we get some guidance, we can't really determine what that would be. And it would be across the board. It would be all areas of the organization.
Right, so obviously 12-month employees, our administrators that work 12-month employees make more money than, say, a certified teacher that makes more money than, say, a support staff person. So we do gauge it by what the average cost of that is, and that's how we determine, we get that $100,000 mark. But again, if it's an administrator, it might be higher because they work 12 months. If it's a support staff, it might be a little less than that, so.
So the real idea there is to find $5.3 million of salary savings in this. Realistically, with Dr. Salins, the executive team, we go through this, work with other administrators in the district. 53 could be a little bit lower depending on what positions.
Exactly, yeah.
Or a tad higher. The idea is that 5.3, and we use the average, just a placeholder of what salary and benefits would be.
So really, at this point, when you're looking at such a deficit in your budget, you can do three things. You can either cut programs, you can cut staff members, or you can not give a salary enhancement. Those are the only three options. And so, or maybe a combination of those three and get you where you need to go. But the bottom line is you have to do some kind of cut because you have to be able to look at that cost of doing business when you have no choice, with gas prices or electric bills and things like that. I mean, you have to cut something. So those are your only three options. I personally, at this point, I would not like to entertain program changes for students because I think that what we offer for students is really great opportunities. And I think our students do very well. And you see that in our test scores. And cutting staff is going to hurt. I mean, you're going to see class sizes. They're going to go up. You have no choice but to do that. But personally, I'd rather see a class size go up than start cutting programs down. Right. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think that's, but it's a reality.
75 positions, what's that, 10% of our total workforce?
Just over.
And you mentioned, I thought I heard you mention 125 number. What?
Right, because if you take your ESSER and then you take
He said it.
75,
I mean, the ESSER.
not 125 positions.
Right, but then
Okay.
if you add, if we didn't get 5 million.
Oh,
it
if we
would
got
be-
the flat,
If we got
yes.
flat funding, then that would be $5 million, which essentially is about 50 staff,
Okay.
about 50 positions.
I got
Yeah, it's about 10 positions for every $1 million.
Thanks.
I don't mind, go ahead.
You know, it's the superintendent's job to present a budget that you feel keeps us whole. Is it realistic? It's real, but is it realistic that it's obtainable? I can't say that. This board, I think, has to make a decision on what's realistic. I mean, we're up here, presenting a budget for our students, but also we have taxpayers. And, you know, when I look here, the state's paying 2.4% increase. But in all these, now, I can complain about this, it's not gonna go anywhere. But then when you start asking the county for 5% and 6% and 10% increases, it's not sustainable. So, I mean, we got to draw a line. And it's not gonna be, I mean, my personal opinion, the first one, A, is a no-brainer. You know? Then we need to discuss B and C.
Right.
And even at C, you're still talking $5 million over what's maintenance effort is. Now, I know cost of business costs more, but you know,
It's more than that, because it's actually 5.835 above maintenance
right,
of
because you
effort.
got to,
Because
they
you got
they
to have
have
the
to-
decrease
but
of,
but the county's citizens and the commissioners have been good to us.
They have been
And they've
very
done,
good to
they've done
us.
really good in the last, more than I've ever seen in the last couple of years. I've been in this position. You know, it's just tough to swallow to sit there and think, some people think they're not, it's almost embarrassing to ask for some of this stuff to me. I mean, I know it's there, and I'm not saying, criticizing you, it's real. It is real. But, you know, we've done a lot with ESSER and LEADS grants. It's helped us out and got our numbers good, but it's over with. The party's over.
Yeah.
We gotta go back to reality. And when you talk, insurance and stuff like that, I mean, I'm not saying you're not getting it, it's like getting a speeding ticket. You got nothing for it.
Yeah.
It's just a cost, it costs more to do it, and you just got it. And I just, it's not, September the 1st, like we've said, we're gonna open schools no matter what happens. So we just gotta find out what's the best.
It might look a little different. I
They're
agree with
gonna
you.
look different.
Right,
I guarantee you.
but you're
they're
right. Absolutely, we're going to continue to serve students.
Right. Yeah, and I'm kind of, and along with Dick, you're right, I mean, we knew that Leeds and Esther was gonna go.
Right.
So I'm not comfortable with A, like you said, I wouldn't be comfortable with it personally, because we knew they were gonna go away. That's just how it is, and so somewhere between, the B and C, and definitely don't wanna cut any programming, but you're right, to just go on, I can
You
say
don't wanna
stuff
cut
about.
programming, and you don't wanna cut staff, but if you need more money for enhancements, you need
Right.
more money for, healthcare, electric's going up, I mean, we know that in our own home
You have
budgets.
no choice.
So let's face it, you know,
I can't imagine what the electric went up this time around.
I mean, it's all, you know, it's just things to think, and the main part, and like you said, when we start talking 100,000 per person, that's where our money is, it's staffing.
It's staffing.
86% of our budget is staff, and every time we can have somebody not employed, it saves us $100,000.
Yeah.
But
Well,
then
I-
it- yeah, so.
I was just going to say, B, through attrition is how I think we could resolve that. When you get to C, it does make it that much more challenging, because then you are starting to say, okay, well, who on this staff we're going to have to RIF, you're going to have to start doing RIFs. And that's where the struggle really comes. But if we keep it at that, Plan B is something that, it's like the 10% that we can do through attrition, that we have people who retire, people who move to a different district because their, spouse is
Whatever.
in the military,
Yeah,
whatever.
whatever the
But we
reason.
do have this consistent number of teachers, about 60 that we hire every year. And so, that seems doable. We can do that without kind of really impacting us as a whole.
But even B
Otherwise,
is
it's gonna-
14%.
I know.
B is
It's
14%.
14%.
You know?
You're right.
And we all live in this county too.
Correct.
Yes. Yep. It's a struggle right now. And not that it necessarily makes a difference, but we're not sitting alone. We have a lot of counties that are in the exact same boat that we are. And the blueprint, as I said, that has amazing intentions, and is it good for kids? Yes, but it's not funded. And until the state realize is that we're gonna have districts that are essentially, I'm not saying our district is gonna do this, but some districts are gonna go bankrupt. I mean, literally,
Right,
it's
and
gonna
is that
bankrupt
good
them.
for kids? I mean, cutting
Right.
teachers, cutting their programs, that doesn't,
Yeah.
that seems like the opposite of what they're intended to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
and you can't cut special ed.
No, you
That's
cannot.
federal mandates.
Right.
Maybe something between B and C. I definitely don't want to cut anything budget off of Sid's. He's already bare bones.
bare bones.
I think what we need to do is present some kind of budget, or have Dr. Sellens work in a detailed budget, because whatever we pick, B or C, or none of the above.
We should
it's
ask if
completely
everybody's
different direction.
comfortable cutting out A.
And A's on the thing, but I don't,
Well, we didn't, but there was still.
yeah, there's still other people might want. We still might have to sit there and curtail some stuff out of here.
Correct.
Because, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, anything over maintenance of effort is an increase.
Correct.
And when you take C, that's 7.25%. Well, most budgets in this day and world doesn't go up 7.25%.
Nope.
And if we're gonna sit there, and that's C,
Yeah.
and that's still more than, a lot more maintenance ever spent, more than they've ever given us before. So, I mean, we gotta be realistic.
Yeah, we do.
And we can't wait for the state to figure it out.
No, we cannot.
And Matt, you gotta present a fleshed out budget, right? Or we do by March?
The budget calendar that you all approved says that you would vote on it on March 6th. That doesn't mean
You can't change
can't.
that, right?
Sure.
But we do have to work with the county too, with their deadline. So I would assume that we could push March 6th a little bit, but we do not know right now what that could be. We do have a meeting with the county administrator next Wednesday on the books, so we might be able to nail that timeline down more.
But if we give you a figure tonight, you can work with that, right? Whether it's March 6th, we make it, or we postpone it.
Sure.
Maybe, you know,
So are we actually gonna take a vote on this, or is it a discussion?
I
and
think we
come
should,
to a
I think we should
consensus?
give direction on which way they should go, because
Well, there's 5 of us, we can give 5 different directions, so we can come to a consensus, is my point.
I will
Do we
say,
wanna pick
look,
A, B, and C?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
That's okay, go ahead.
The past 2 years, looking back at the board meeting documents, because again, I'm in an interim role, so what we've done the past few years is you basically, at the March meeting, voted on a budget summary, and then the details of where every individual dollar figure out went from there, because like, right now, there's 12 locally funded positions, like Ms. Capes, you asked, like, what are those positions necessarily? So we would have to, if we're gonna present a full budget book, we need to, because of the state's requirements, the different categories, we have to identify what those positions are. If we do more than just voting on a summary at the March 6th. But again, that's what you've done the last 2
to
years.
narrow this down for discussion, personally, I say we do not entertain budget A.
Correct. I agree.
I agree
Does
with
everybody
that.
agree on that?
100%.
All right,
I'll should let me go next.
33%.
Right, well, and then I don't want to entertain any stuff, program cutting personally. I mean, like you said, I think we have a fantastic programs in Queen Anne, so like you said, it might just have to be bigger classrooms.
Classes.
So somewhere, I'm kind of leaning somewhere between B and, I mean, C is, wow, cutting all those positions is, that instead of 7 or 14, maybe a 10%.
Well, you know, we're gonna present a budget, and it's- Dr. Sellers is obligated to present a budget that's gonna keep us whole. This board does something that's probably gonna be higher than what the commissioner's gonna think is available, because it's, you know, they got 5 other, or probably 10 other parts, I don't know how many they got, that need money. I mean, you know, you're gonna tell the sheriff we're gonna cut deputies, you're gonna tell EMS we're gonna go from an 8-minute to a 15-minute response time. I mean,
So we're picking out what we're gonna take to the commissioners.
And
Whether
then-
they
and we
fund it
still-
or
we
not
still-
is
it's still
totally
come back to us
separate,
and-
not in our control. When it comes back, we know what we've got, if anything, and then we know from there where we can cut from attrition or whatever we need to do. Class size increases, hopefully not program cuts,
Right.
that sort of thing. So you were leaning between a B and a C.
And a C, yes.
B and a
I'm leaning
C.
Between a B and a C.
You got a figure in your head?
I was thinking, well, then I was thinking, what was the other one, was 9.8 million?
Say again?
8 million?
Oh, 9.8 or 8?
8
She went to
million,
8.
because 12 is 9.7, or other one,
Right.
yeah, so
Okay.
8 million.
Let me make a suggestion. We've got three in front of us. One we put on the side burner, or at the door. They've worked up B and C. We decide which one, and they might still have to work on it again, no
Oh,
matter which
yeah.
one we do. We could pick C and we could still be working on it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think we need to do that, be upfront, we'll have some discussions, and then, when it comes down, we're gonna get X number of dollars. But they're gonna, I think it'll be fair to us, but they can only do what they got. And then when that happens, we then decide, we don't wanna cut programs, we wanna keep, but we're gonna have class size increase a little bit.
Right.
It is what it is. It's the,
Yeah.
So what are
So,
you thinking?
Matt,
Are you thinking B, or are you thinking a number?
I say we should, I personally think we should, I'm not thinking B, but I could understand passing B and then sit there and see what happens.
Well, I'm fine with B too. You guys drafted up 3 plans. I don't think we need to go picking in between.
Yeah.
There was obviously a reason you came up with 9.7 million, and what, 14% in that case. Sounds like Dick's on board with B. I'm fine with B.
I think we're gonna have to make cuts on B, but.
Right.
but-
Well,
but
because
that's where
sure.
we're gonna start as a
Again,
proposal.
But that's
You know.
what we should
All right,
where
so
we're
is that
asking.
how, do I have a motion then on the table? Are we voting? Or we just want them to move forward with B?
Do we have a consensus that the board
Yeah.
thinks B
Consensus.
would be something to
And
move forward
start
with?
from there?
I think we have
All right.
consensus to
Everybody
start at
disagree?
B.
Nope.
No?
All right.
All right, B it is.
Thank you. So, in
Thank you.
general, March 6th, we will bring B, just in that form, just one
Right.
sheet.
Yep, back, and then build out from there. And maybe,
Yeah.
like Dr. Kibler said, we will have met,
Yeah,
and hopefully that we'll get some direction on what they're thinking.
Okay.
Give us some
And
better-
during the whole time, I think we need to keep looking, underlying, I know this is a 10,000, if you get down to
Cuts, yeah.
5,000, 2,000, or 1,000, when we get right down to a harder figure, but, they've gotta have budget hearings. So,
Yeah.
they're not gonna be, their thing probably maybe till May, because they gotta hear everybody and their
Yeah.
different, departments, so it's a process. I think
Right.
we need to put something in.
And then we need to have our budget to the state. What's the deadline for
I'll have to get back to you on that.
further on? All right.
We'll have it after the commissioners give us the money we know the commissioners. give
Yeah,
us,
no,
which is
I
May.
understand that, right.
It's a very tight,
For approval.
from when we get it from the commissioners to get it to the state, it's very tight.
Well, I think that's where we have
Yeah, I don't
open
remember the
discussion,
date.
and you'll have some plans to
Yeah.
get us where we need to be.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, we'll be September, might not look like this, but we'll be here.
Look the same.
Yeah,
We'll all be here.
On this slide where you have the 1.2 million, is that salary and benefits? Is that included in that
Yes.
number?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Is that also exponential the next year?
It is
Yes,
exponential,
keep saying
yes.
Exponential, yes.
Yes, it is. Cost of doing business is a real thing.
Exciting
My
for.
release.
Yes, sir. Questions? Thank you, Dr. Kibler.
Thanks, Dr. Kibler.
Yes, you're released. Good choice of words.
Dismissed?
You can go.
Not too far.
Yeah, all right. So the cursive writing has came up, and we've had discussions about this before. So, Alexis, I know you initially had brought it up.
My computer stopped working, so yeah, I would like to make a motion that we bring the cursive writing back into the curriculum.
I'll second that.
Do we have any discussion?
We, just for my, we do have, because we've been updated on this in the past. We do have that in some of our schools now. So it's not like we don't have it, but what we're looking at is making it more standard. And I think it's what, 2 or 3, second and third grades when it happens?
That's exactly right. Second grade is where it's formalized and it's typically taught, that's where the standards say it. And then the other grades, the upper grades in elementary school, if technology is not available, then cursive writing.
So I guess my only
Do
question
we have
would,
the ability to, 2 things, do we have the ability to do, I guess we do because we have teachers, but do we have the space and time to do it if we, at whatever level, we feel, you guys feel comfortable with?
That would be difficult. We would have to figure out where we would pull that instructional time. Right now, what's happening is that during our small group rotations, there are sometimes set aside times in classrooms where students can practice cursive writing, okay? But if we were to actually implement cursive writing, we would have to figure out where that time is coming from. Is it gonna come from whole group instruction? Is it gonna come from small group instruction? Where are we pulling that time? And so I know that we have a survey that we have drafted, that we're planning to send that survey out to get some input from families, because at this point, I mean, I've been sitting in this seat for almost 2 years now, and no one has contacted me specifically about cursive writing. I haven't seen an email or phone call, and typically if there's something going on instructionally, I will get a phone call or get notified, and I have not to date.
Let's say, did we get any phone calls about the 2 classes we just approved?
I mean, I've heard it from teachers, like, you know, in the classroom that, like you said, are, if they have a little bit of instructional time, what, oh, did you need me?
No, they were saying goodbye.
That are teaching it. But the question I had is, you said it's being done at some schools and not others. Like, why is that happening?
Well, it depends on what the schedules are looking like. I mean, it depends on the school time and the instructional day, what's happening specifically. There is a lot that's going on if you look at the English language arts block, especially at the elementary level, most of the time our teachers have 3. If they're lucky, they have 3 small groups that they have to instruct. Sometimes it's 4 small groups. They also have to focus on in the early grades, phonemic awareness, specifically phonological awareness, informational text. They're doing all of these different pieces that are happening within the English language arts block. A lot's happening. Vocabulary, all of these pieces it's important. So we've got to take a look specifically at where we can pull that instructional time. And we want to take a look at that to see if we can balance that with all the other things that are happening within the instructional time within that EL block.
But some teachers are doing it.
Yes.
So somewhere they can be done.
Matt, you raising your hand?
Yeah. I just wanted to offer on the one point about the question, did we run the courses by the public? The courses themselves, not necessarily, but through the strategic planning process 2 years ago, what we heard from all stakeholder groups, teachers, parents, community members, students, we would love a financial planning
Class, yeah.
Why are we not learning to balance a checkbook? What's credit card debt mean? So I mean, that is a response. And we did run those courses through the CAC and the SSIC as well. So I mean, that could be an avenue as well.
And that's why I wanted more information. That's why I asked for the survey, because I haven't heard it. As Matt said, through the strategic plan, it never came up, not one time. And so, but in my student groups, every time I meet with student groups, which is at the secondary level only, constant financial literacy, increasing the science opportunities, AP classes, those types of things. I don't hear anything from even students that say, I really wish I had had cursive handwriting. Would you consider putting that back in the curriculum? I mean, I'm fine with it if we can find the space and the availability, but something's going to have to be cut. And our you ask about how it's different from school to school. That's an excellent question, because believe it or not, the instructional day, even though the instructional day is the same at each of our elementary schools, how much time they have with their teacher is different. You're like, well, how does that actually happen? Well, because Kennard and Centerville Elementary Schools buses are situated the way they are, they're taking in kids for 25 minutes in the morning, and then dismissal is 25 minutes in the afternoon. But when you go to Churchill, it's completely different. All the students come off, they go right to their teacher. So they actually lose time at some of our schools. It's just not equal across the board. And that's simply because of transportation and how our students are. If we had more buses, we probably could resolve that issue, but it would take a lot more buses and a lot more money.
When do they start using Chromebooks? What grade?
They actually use the technology piece of it down to pre-K level, believe it or not, but we don't.
What do you mean the technology? Oh, not
The
the program.
Chromebooks we were in our budget for kindergarten, which got cut from our budget last year. So they actually have carts and they share. So like four teachers are on a team, and I might have it from 9 to 10:30. And then, the next teacher has it during the day or whatever, but we don't have designated. But for first grade, they have them available to them.
And how long does it take to get a grade schooler proficient in cursive?
Well, that's a really good question, because every student works at their own pace, and
Yeah,
some,
right.
actually, developmentally speaking, some students are more advanced, and so you are kind of all over the board with that.
Is there an average? I mean, for your average student?
I mean, typically you only get that instruction for 1 year, and then you have opportunities to practice it in the curriculum the rest of the time.
right,
So,
right.
you know, that
I learned it.
instructional time, and what would that instructional time look like? Because I think what Dr. Spranko was going to, I mean, are we, you know, moving to purchase a handwriting curriculum for our students and implement that at a certain, you know, extensive of, I'm just pulling something out, 15 minutes a day? Or are we looking to put it in a variety of ways where they do have different stations where the student would practice that at a different station? I think there's a lot of ways to go about it, but I kind of wanted to get information so that the board could make a good decision on it. Do we, you know, if the board gets the information, they say, look, I don't know that it needs to be, 15 minutes every single day, but it certainly needs to be in the curriculum. Can we make sure that in every single classroom they have that as a station? And that those students get exposed to that 3 times a week or whatever. But, you know, I just don't feel like I have the knowledge right now enough to say, I know what the need is there, because I don't have any information that can guide me on that. But if the board says, today, we're gonna vote on it, and you're putting handwriting back in there, we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, sure.
We're gonna figure it out, right?
So why, does anybody know the history why Queen Anne's County pulled handwriting? Or
We
was
talked
that an
about that
actual
before.
conscious decision, or did it just kind
I
of?
think it buys
Go
wound out
away.
over the course.
I
of-
don't think it was
That
just the
came out
county.
of Common
It's
Core, the
I was gonna say,
go with
Common Core was a big
Technology.
deal.
My rebuttal to that is, we have kids on Chromebooks all day and we don't teach them to type. My daughter's in 5th grade and she's writing an essay on the computer and has no clue how to type. She's hunting and pecking. Why isn't she have a pen and paper, a pencil and paper, writing her essay down? Like, easier to convey your thoughts. I mean, we're not teaching these kids to type, or we want to go the technology route, but we're not providing those skills.
And we teach them to print, right? Print, right?
Oh, yes.
And,
Which it takes so long.
But
which
It
way?
just takes so long, to print when you're printing.
Well, it's a slow,
Yeah,
it's a slow speed
yeah.
method
Well,
of
and
getting
it
your
wasn't
idea
even-
on paper. And
Yeah.
I, as a Boy Scout leader, I brought this up before, I've seen my Boy Scouts, their mind is running 100 miles an hour, and they're trying to write down something, and they're stuck with printing. And it looks like a foreign language, like Chinese hieroglyphics or whatever, but
Well,
it's
it
not
wasn't-
English printing.
Well, it wasn't even just the idea of cursive either, it was the type, it was the
fine motor
brain,
skills
yeah, it was the
and
brain
the
and
brain
hand
to-
connection
yeah,
that helps them
connection.
learn
Right.
better. So
And
even if
I've
you
read-
asked them if they needed cursive, they wouldn't know that they needed it because they're not familiar with what happens in their brain when they're learning it.
And I know some of us have done some research on it and that kind of thing, and, there is a certain artistic expression that comes with it, as the kids develop their own method of, cursive. I know that California, the whole state board just returned to cursive writing in the curriculum because they realized that they made a mistake going with Common Core 10 years ago, whatever it was, and pulling it out. If California jumped off a bridge, would I jump off a bridge? I don't know. My mom would advise against it. But I think there is a need to put cursive back into the curriculum, which obviously is why I seconded the motion.
And when we think about that, though, we still have to think about the conversation we just had about the budget and what comes out so that we can
Sure.
purchase the equipment or the materials and the time to get that done. So there's going to be a balance.
Yeah. of
I didn't
course.
have any, when I learned to write cursive, I didn't have any equipment.
No,
So
ma'am.
I had a pen and a paper, and you watched your teacher draw it, and you
The paper had dotted lines on it, right?
Yes.
Solid dotted
But
lines.
you had some equipment. You
Yeah,
had
but
That
we
pen.
didn't
was-
have any
I
Pencil and
understand where
dotted
you're coming
lines.
from,
I'm
Yeah.
not sure that would even have to come to
Computer
us for the
technology
budget
to
item, because you can
learn
buy those pads of paper for less than
Yes.
$25,000.
In fact, I could donate a couple. And
Right.
so if we were to bring it back in, it would be at the grade school level, right? The kids that are in
Second and third.
8th grade now that missed it through Common Core, 9th grade, we wouldn't be going back retroactively, right? They're old enough now, they could do that
wouldn't
on
be
their own
the
if they're that
recommendation,
interested.
correct.
Or if their parents are. So it would be the 2nd grade, which is what?
Second or
1,000
third. I would say
students?
second or third. I'd rather default to Bridget and where it is,
Yeah,
where we
okay.
can put it in the
Somewhere in
curriculum.
there.
Because it's appropriate at both of those.
Yeah, and I wouldn't attempt here, my
Right.
point was, how many students are we talking about in a first year reintroducing cursive? What, 700 students in those
Not
2nd or
even.
3rd grade?
Yeah, not,
Something
oh,
like that.
second, if you did
Wherever
both of
you
those,
put it.
right, exactly, but we probably would do one or the other.
Yeah, one or the other, so 700 students, something like that, or?
It'd be less than that, but-
Less,
Is it?
all right, just to get a rough idea.
But I think even though I talk to people that say, why do we need that anymore? I think we do. I think it's a skill that's lost, that shouldn't be lost. My question is, I have no problem in going for it. I just want to understand, because every time you have a 5-gallon bucket and you put another quart in it,
Yeah.
the quart's gotta come out
Something's
somewhere.
gotta
And
come
it's
out.
probably well worth something else coming out. I'm not sorry, but I think we just need to, I'd love to get it in for next September, you know, if we can. But I'd like to make sure we do it the right way and that doesn't upset the apple cart any farther. You know, that would be my suggestion to the
So are we putting out the survey or not?
Yeah, it's ready to
So why
go
don't
for
we-
March,
Well,
but,
I'm
I
thinking,
mean,
why do we need the survey if, I mean, I'm trying to think if have we done surveys for other classes?
well,
Because like for these two classes, did a survey go out to see if we wanted these two classes?
yeah, I mean,
That's what
I'm
Dr.
gonna,
Wood does.
No,
Matt,
but no, he talked about that he'd heard from parents, but did we do an official survey like sounds like we're doing here for any of the curriculum that we're doing?
Did we do a survey when we took it out?
Right? I mean, it's just, I'm wondering if we vote,
inclined to
and
think
if
that.
it were to pass, we wouldn't need a survey. I mean, what would be the point? Because,
Well, I think it's how you implement it.
oh, right, well, that's a whole nother issue, but that's.
I would just say I think we started a precedent this year with the new courses, taking them to the CAC and the SSIC for input before you voted on them. So you knew what they thought of. So did we do a survey on those courses? The answer is no, but they were presented to those groups before they.
So CAC saw these? Did I miss that meeting? Did they see this before? I'm just wondering, because I've been very diligent going to those
The
meetings.
the financial algebra,
it might not.
Yeah, for that.
You know what, I think you're right, they did not see those, but they definitely saw the financial algebra, because I was at that meeting
and
myself.
the
Yeah.
additional arts theater courses.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
is.
so I guess I'm saying it doesn't have to be, it's not our precedent, because it didn't go to these two. I mean, we've done it, but it's,
So I'm comfortable with proceeding on a vote, whether it's tonight or another night, but without a survey. Now, Dick made a point, when you put something in, something might have to come out. I'm not gonna make a motion to postpone the vote right now. If somebody wants to do that, that's fine. But it would be good to know, you know, what time is gonna be, or what program, or not program, but activities, whatever you wanna call it, second
Sure, I
grade.
I
is
can
going to
certainly have,
come
I mean,
out.
that's gonna come through, Angela Giebert and Bridget Passon, the two of them will work together to, determine whether second grade, third grade, what's the best fit, and then look at the materials and what we would either need to purchase and what we would need to change. I mean, those recommendations are gonna come from them, because I really consider them the experts.
Of course.
So they would make a recommendation.
Right.
And kind of talk through it with us, and then I can certainly have them present to the board with the final, where it's going, what's it gonna look like, type of, you know,
If we voted tonight
Activities.
to put cursive back into our thing, you're gonna come back with how it's gonna look and what's
Yeah,
gonna
but-
happen.
yeah,
The
I
board
can-
could then make a motion, is it still reasonable or not, or let's move forward with it. But right now, I think the board is kind of saying, we'd like to see cursive, let's go.
yeah, that's what I'm kind of saying. I don't want to come back and see if it's going to go. It's just, we.
We gotta find out what, you know.
Well, right,
Yeah,
but.
but we can vote on it
They may have
tonight, then we can
spoiled
figure
us,
that out.
because I feel like every time we make a decision, you guys work it all
Make it
together and make it
happen.
happen. So I'm totally comfortable if that's something that we do, that.
They can make it happen in
they're
a
gonna make
reasonable
it
way
happen.
that looks good for the best interest of the system.
Students.
Well, if also they come back and say, we're gonna drop this, and this, and it's gonna cost, I don't think it's gonna cost that much money, but, you know, then we sit there and say, hey,
Yeah, but we don't have all of that. Like, we don't always have all those things for all the changes that are made. We don't know all the different financial pieces.
I don't know enough about what impact, I personally like cursive, I don't know what impact that Dr. Smith, and it's gonna come back and sit there and say, you know, okay, here's what's gonna happen. I'd have no problem voting on it and personally letting it go forward. It's just, you know,
Okay.
I know we got a motion in a second.
Anything else? Yeah. All right.
So I did want to add one more point, though, that when looking at the courses that come through and where they go and everything, if it's an elective course, you know, we look at that a little bit differently, because not everybody's required to do it. But when it's a requirement, Yeah, we typically try to get additional information, and this will be a requirement for all students. So I just want to differentiate that, I was trying to think, why would we not have brought that to them? And when it's in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it's something
But the
that.
financial literacy class wasn't.
Well,
wasn't
but we
elective.
did it on purpose because we want to move to make it a requirement, if you
Correct.
recall. And so that's why we purposefully planted that seed to see what kind of reaction did we get? What are parents thinking?
Right.
But, you made me really think, so I was just like, okay, I got it now, sorry. But yes, so this would be a requirement for everyone.
Okay.
And that's the only difference between that and having, the elective classes type of opportunity.
All right, anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second, all
I
in
was
favor?
thinking, well, just one other thing. You said Ms. Giebert will be looking at it?
Yeah, Angela Gieber and Bridget Passon would together work to determine where it would go and what would it look like.
So they would probably get input from an OT?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Yep. Yeah,
Anything else?
good point. Thank you, Rochelle.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all of, was that
Unanimous.
everybody? Okay. all right.
Sure.
What was it?
Sure.
She said,
Unanimous.
was it
Oh,
unanimous?
sorry, yes, I didn't hear you, I apologize.
No, you're good.
All right, Human Resources Report, can I get a motion to
Make a
approve?
motion, we approve the Human Resources Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Future meetings, we have February 28th as a budget work session at 4:30, and then March 6th will be our regular board meeting. Is that gonna work for everyone?
What was that date again, the 28th?
February 28th for the budget work session at
Because
4:30.
we meet with the
They're meeting with,
county that day.
The 28th.
Oh, we're doing
Our work session will
operations.
be the
I mean, capital. Never mind. Sorry. I was thinking, we'll have an update for you, but we will probably have an update for you, but it's for capital, so.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
We're
so we're still
Thank
good
you.
for that one? Okay. And then March 6th for the board meeting?
Yes.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks.